This was the moment everything changed for Kerwimbo. One second, it looked like everything was calm, and the next, chaos hit harder than anyone expected. Cameras caught her storming out of the house, leaving questions hanging in the air and jaws on the floor. But why did she do that when everything seemed fine? You could see it in her eyes. Something had snapped, and the people closest to her didn't even see it coming. The room went silent. Friends and family froze, unsure whether to follow, confront, or give her space. Social media exploded almost instantly, and viewers were left asking themselves if they had missed every warning sign leading up to this moment. Tensions that had been simmering quietly behind the cameras finally boiled over in front of millions. What happens next changes everything for her, and no one will ever look at her the same way again. Last episode ended with sparks flying, and the tension wasn't subtle. There were side glances, half-finished arguments, and that awkward silence that screamed something bigger was brewing. Everyone thought it was just drama for the cameras, but if you watched closely, you could see the cracks forming in real time. Old resentments were bubbling under smiles and forced laughter, and a few choices from earlier in the season were coming back to bite in ways no one predicted. By the time the credits rolled, one relationship felt on the edge of collapse, while another seemed to be quietly fraying behind the happy faces. The emotional undercurrent was clear. Not everyone in this circle was playing the same game. Some were strategizing, some were reacting, and a few were holding back truths that would explode later. The stakes weren't just about arguments or petty jealousies. They were about trust, control, and who would come out unscathed. Then the new episode opened with a scene that threw everyone off balance. The house was calm on the surface, but the camera lingered just long enough to capture subtle tensions. The slight pause before answering, the tightening jaw, the way hands fidgeted. You could feel something was about to go off, even if no one knew exactly when. She walked into the room, confident but tight-lipped, and the atmosphere shifted instantly. The others noticed it too, though they didn't know the scale of what was coming. This episode makes it clear early on that patterns are repeating and behaviors are escalating. One cast member's need to control situations is clashing directly with another's desire for independence. Every glance, every sarcastic comment, every choice to speak or stay silent is magnified in ways that start small but carry enormous consequences. Fans watching online quickly picked up on it, tweeting in real time about how obvious the tension had become. Social feeds lit up with theories about what would happen when these opposing personalities finally collided. The main players in this cycle are impossible to ignore. One is defensive, holding back and calculating every word. Another is more reactive, letting emotions spill without filters. Then there's the one who appears calm and rational, but behind closed doors is weighing options and silently strategizing how to avoid getting burned. These behaviors are patterns, not accidents. If you've been following the story, you know this isn't a one-time flare-up. It's the result of months of buildup, choices being tested, and lines being crossed. Already, viewers are seeing how history repeats itself. A fight from an earlier season, which seemed like a minor squabble, has left lingering resentment. That unresolved argument is coloring every interaction now, and the slightest provocation is enough to reignite old wounds. The way one cast member shuts down conversations or deflects questions is no coincidence. It's a pattern that feeds tension, leaving the others frustrated, confused, and increasingly unsure how to respond. As the episode moves forward, small actions become loaded with meaning. A comment that seems casual sparks a defensive response. A look that seems innocent triggers speculation about hidden intentions. These are behaviors, not personalities, and they define the drama more than any single argument ever could. The subtle power plays and emotional maneuvers are what keep viewers glued to the screen, questioning what's real and what's performative. And just when it feels like things might stabilize, someone makes a move that turns the tension up another notch. A decision that seems minor at first, choosing to leave a room, to ignore a question, to comment on social media, suddenly feels like a bomb waiting to explode. You can almost hear the collective intake of breath from the cast and the audience at the same time. Everyone watching knows this is a turning point, even if the cameras haven't captured the full fallout yet. Some of the interactions are almost surgical in how they escalate the drama. One cast member tests limits, another overreacts, and the reactions feed on each other. It's a cycle that's part strategy, part emotional instinct, and part old grudges finally surfacing. You start noticing the patterns, the way arguments begin with something small but escalate because the underlying issues were never addressed. That's what makes this episode so gripping. You're watching behaviors clash in real time, and the stakes feel dangerously high. By mid-episode, it's clear that what seemed like a small disagreement in the first 10 minutes has ripple effects across the house. One person's withdrawal amplifies another's frustration. Private moments between two cast members show cracks forming in alliances that once seemed solid. Even seemingly minor decisions, like where to sit or what to comment on, carry weight. This is behavior in motion, a chain reaction that will define the rest of the season if left unchecked. And what happens next will make everyone question who's really in control and who's being honest about their intentions. Every scene builds tension while giving glimpses of what might be coming. A joke lands awkwardly, sparking suspicion. A compliment feels half-hearted, triggering defensiveness. Every smile is measured, every conversation tested, and the smallest gestures take on outsized significance. You start to see how patterns of avoidance, defensiveness, and subtle manipulation can escalate conflict even when no one seems to be intentionally starting it. By the end of this setup, the audience understands that nothing in this house is simple. Every choice has layers, every comment carries hidden meaning, and every action sets up future confrontation. Viewers are left hanging, waiting to see who will break first, who will push too far, and who will finally confront what has been simmering for months. The tension is no longer just a part of the story, it becomes the engine driving everything that follows. The tension in this episode isn't just surface level. It runs deep, and it's fueled by emotions that have been simmering for weeks. Jealousy, loyalty, betrayal, and miscommunication intertwine in ways that make every interaction feel loaded. On camera, you can see how small comments or sideways glances trigger outsized reactions. One cast member seems calm, but the micro-expressions, the hesitations, the barely audible sighs, they tell a different story. In my opinion, these moments reveal far more about intentions than any confrontation could. Take the scene where walks into the kitchen mid-conversation. On paper, it's a casual entrance, but the way she freezes at the doorway and shifts her weight subtly sets off a chain reaction. Another cast member, noticing the pause, stiffens and responds defensively. It's almost like watching a domino effect. The tiniest cue triggers emotional feedback loops that grow larger with every exchange. This pattern repeats throughout the episode, and it's what makes these behaviors so compelling to watch. Allegedly, some of the tension comes from lingering feelings of being undervalued. One cast member clearly feels like their loyalty isn't being reciprocated, and it shows in how quickly they pivot from neutral comments to passive-aggressive remarks. Another seems to be testing boundaries, seeing how far they can push without provoking a response. You can see it in body language, the clipped tone of voice, and the deliberate choice to ignore attempts at reconciliation. These behaviors highlight who's growing and who is resisting, and why that matters for the dynamics of the house. Then there's the betrayal angle, subtle but present. One person's choice to share a private conversation with someone outside the immediate circle creates ripples that nobody anticipated. The moment on camera is brief, just a whisper, a fleeting glance, but the fallout is enormous. Other cast members are suddenly defensive, confused, and mistrustful. What seems small at first becomes symbolic of larger fractures. Allegedly, this is not just about a single comment, it's about accumulated resentment that's been building over weeks. Miscommunication fuels the drama even more. A conversation starts with one person trying to clarify intentions, but the other interprets it as criticism. Words that seem harmless ignite arguments that could have been avoided, and it's fascinating to watch how different personalities respond under pressure. One withdraws, one confronts, and one manipulates silence as a form of control. The patterns of response tell us more about long-term behavior than any single argument could, and The audience is left piecing together motives while the cast navigates their emotional minefield. Contrast is everywhere in this episode. One cast member shows growth. They're attempting to communicate clearly, take responsibility, and anticipate consequences. Another resists, doubling down on defensiveness, framing their distance as independence. The juxtaposition is jarring. You start to wonder, why does growth feel like a struggle for some, while resistance feels effortless for others? In my opinion, it comes down to emotional investment versus self-preservation. The ones trying to evolve are putting themselves at risk of disappointment, while those resisting avoid confrontation but lose meaningful connection. A key scene illustrates this perfectly. In a family meeting, one person tries to voice concerns, carefully choosing words to avoid conflict. Another immediately dismisses them, folding into a wall of defensiveness. Cameras catch the subtle cues, the rolled eyes, the sharp intake of breath, the barely concealed frustration, and the tension escalates without anyone yelling. What seems like politeness on the surface masks deep unresolved issues. Allegedly, this is exactly the moment where alliances shift and loyalties are tested, and the episode uses it to show patterns of behavior that fans might not have noticed before. The psychological element is fascinating. People who resist change often create an emotional buffer, and that's exactly what's happening here. Independence is framed as empowerment, but in my opinion, it's largely avoidance. Meanwhile, the cast members attempting to grow are confronting fear, embarrassment, and potential rejection head-on. This creates a dynamic where progress and regression collide in a very visible, very human way. Every interaction is a negotiation of trust and boundaries, and the audience gets to witness the consequences unfold live. Then there's the jealousy factor, subtle but persistent. In several scenes, one cast member reacts defensively whenever another receives attention or validation. It's never overt, but the micro-reactions, quick side comments, pointed facial expressions, deliberate interruptions reveal a sense of rivalry. Allegedly, the jealousy isn't just about attention, it's about perceived fairness, control, and who gets to define the narrative. This tension keeps viewers glued because it's relatable and messy. Everyone has experienced feeling overlooked or dismissed, and seeing it play out amplified on camera adds emotional weight. Loyalty conflicts escalate as the episode progresses. When one person tries to defend someone else, another immediately challenges it. Arguments aren't just about the topic at hand. They're about perceived alliances, unspoken rules, and emotional debts. Mini cliffhangers emerge in these moments because viewers can sense that any word could tip the balance. Who will align with whom? Who will crack first under pressure? The episode keeps layering these conflicts, and it's impossible to look away. A pivotal on-camera moment occurs during a late-night confrontation. One cast member approaches another to resolve a lingering misunderstanding. The conversation seems calm at first, but the defensive posture, clipped responses, and strategic pauses reveal the real story. This is behavior speaking louder than words. Allegedly, this is the turning point where a character either doubles down on resistance or begins a tentative step toward growth. The audience can feel the stakes rise even without explosive arguments. Contrast is reinforced through indirect interactions. While one person is clearly trying to connect, another is focused on self-protection. The contrast is sharpened by side conversations, private whispers, and social media reactions shown briefly. These moments reveal a subtle but constant battle: who evolves and who stays rigid. The consequences aren't immediate, but in my opinion, the emotional fallout will ripple through the rest of the season, and viewers instinctively recognize this. Then, the episode pivots to reveal small betrayals that feel huge in context. One cast member shares a story selectively, creating tension between others who weren't even part of the conversation. Micro-behaviors, turning away, folding arms, avoiding eye contact, become loaded with significance. Allegedly, these small acts signal larger patterns, avoidance, manipulation, and silent judgment. Every time someone chooses silence over honesty, another layer of tension is added. By the midpoint, The emotional stakes have escalated dramatically. Viewers see who is willing to confront fears and who is doubling down on old habits. Mini cliffhangers appear naturally. Will someone finally speak up? Will another retreat again? Every scene teases the next revelation, keeping the audience guessing. The episode doesn't need dramatic shouting matches because the tension is psychological and relational, which makes it far more gripping. Subtle power struggles define the remainder of the episode. One person tests limits with comments designed to provoke. Another reacts defensively, reinforcing the cycle. A third seems to observe quietly, waiting to see who breaks first. These behaviors mirror patterns that fans have seen before, but now they're amplified under pressure. The contrast between evolving characters and resisting ones is stark, and it's clear why this matters. The relationships themselves hang in the balance. Allegedly, one of the most revealing sequences is when private conversations spill into group interactions. A moment that seemed small, a question asked innocently, triggers defensive reactions and reveals long-standing patterns of avoidance. Watching these micro-behaviors unfold gives insight into the emotional architecture of the house. Some cast members are clearly self-aware, others are not, and this imbalance drives much of the conflict. Toward the end of the episode, stakes escalate further. One person's need for control collides with another's demand for respect, and the friction becomes undeniable. Micro-expressions, pauses, and tone choices speak louder than words. You can almost feel the tension ripple through the room. Allegedly, this sequence sets up a major confrontation that won't hit until later, and it's a reminder that behavior, more than personality, dictates how the story unfolds. A shocking revelation is coming that will change how viewers see every alliance in this house. Every beat in this act builds toward that moment. The audience sees loyalty tested, betrayal hinted at, and miscommunication magnified. Characters grow, resist, push, and retreat, creating a dynamic that is as psychologically rich as it is dramatic. By the end of this segment, the stakes are unmistakable. Growth or resistance, honesty or avoidance, connection or isolation. Every action has weight, and the viewers are left on edge, anticipating how the next explosive revelation will redefine the season. As soon as this episode aired, the internet exploded. Fans flooded social media with reactions that ranged from shock to outrage to straight-up confusion. One tweet said, "I cannot believe what just happened. Who does that?" While a comment on Reddit read, "If I were there, I would have walked out." The fan responses highlight exactly why this episode hit so hard. People see themselves in the cast, their flaws amplified, and the tension mirrors real-life situations we've all faced. Would you act like that if it was you? The irony doesn't stop there. On Instagram, one fan pointed out that the person who lectured everyone about honesty ended up being the first to bend the truth themselves. Another highlighted the hypocrisy of demanding loyalty from others while publicly airing private grievances. These observations are biting but fair, and they make viewers reflect, how often do we claim moral high ground while ignoring our own missteps? It's fascinating how public commentary mirrors the micro-drama unfolding on camera, giving the episode a dual layer of tension: what happens in the house and how it's perceived outside. Allegedly, behind the scenes, the cast felt the heat from the fans long before the episode even finished airing. Footage shows glances exchanged that seem to say, "Did you see this yet?" Or, "We can't believe they edited it like that." The smallest on-camera actions, a shrug, a side-eye, a silent pause, suddenly carry the weight of social judgment. It's almost as if the cast is performing both for the cameras and for the millions of fans dissecting every movement online. The stakes are higher than ever, because emotional missteps now have real-world consequences. In one scene, a minor disagreement blew up on Twitter overnight. Fans were split, some sided with one cast member for standing their ground, while others criticized them for overreacting. The debates were intense, with hundreds of comments analyzing tone, body language, and intention. Would you handle that conflict differently if it were your family on camera? It's a question viewers can't ignore, and it keeps the conversation alive long after the episode ends. Social media reactions often amplify behaviors that might have gone unnoticed otherwise. A subtle eye roll or a deliberately slow response becomes meme-worthy content, dissected in threads across platforms. One Reddit user wrote, "The way they just ignored them for 10 minutes spoke volumes." Another added, "You can feel the tension through the screen." These reactions not only validate the audience's emotional experience, but also highlight the irony of actions versus intentions. One cast member insists they're trying to keep peace, but the footage and the fans suggest something very different. The interplay between public perception and on-screen behavior creates a layered tension. Cast members start adjusting behavior in real time, aware of how every gesture might be scrutinized online. In some moments, you can almost see them thinking, how will this look on Twitter? The awareness adds a new dimension of stress, making small conflicts feel explosive. Allegedly, this is why even minor disagreements escalate quickly. They're not just navigating personal emotions, they're managing a public narrative simultaneously. Fan reactions also serve as a mirror for the audience to question morality, loyalty, and accountability. Comments often call out double standards. One person criticizes another for being defensive, then turns around to defend similar behavior from themselves. The irony is impossible to miss. It's compelling because the audience isn't just observing drama, they're actively judging it, creating a feedback loop that intensifies the stakes for the cast. Could you stay calm under that level of scrutiny and judgment? Another layer emerges when private moments become public talking points. Short clips of side conversations, captured and shared by the production team, went viral online. Fans dissected tone, phrasing, and body language, drawing conclusions about trust, betrayal, and who holds power in the group. Allegedly, some of these reactions even reached the cast, heightening behind-the-scenes tension for the next episode. Every look, every hesitation, every barely audible sigh becomes significant when millions are watching and commenting. The episode also highlights unexpected hypocrisy in behavior, often unintentional. One cast member demands transparency, but carefully omits details when speaking to others. Another criticizes emotional avoidance while practicing it themselves. Fans are quick to notice, sharing screenshots and timestamp clips to prove the point. It's a reminder that the drama isn't just entertainment, it's a social experiment in how honesty, perception, and self-interest collide under constant observation. Mini cliffhangers are everywhere in these social media reactions. A single tweet might hint at someone's intentions without revealing full context, leaving viewers speculating for hours. Fans wonder, who will crack first? Who will finally speak out? Who will hold back until the next episode? This anticipation mirrors the emotional suspense on camera, keeping audiences engaged across platforms. Finally, the consequences of these online interactions aren't limited to immediate feedback. Allegedly, the cast is already feeling pressure from heightened expectations, and their choices now carry long-term implications for relationships, alliances, and reputation. Social media acts as a second set of eyes, constantly evaluating decisions, amplifying mistakes, and rewarding perceived victories. The episode ends with unresolved tension, leaving viewers craving the next shocking turn. The next confrontation is going to shake alliances in ways you won't see coming, and fans are already speculating who will survive the fallout. Every verified reaction, ironic twist, and behind-the-scenes tension reinforces the core drama. The audience experiences the dual suspense of on-camera conflict and online scrutiny. Loyalties are questioned, hypocrisy is exposed, and emotional stakes are higher than ever. By the end of this act, viewers are left with one undeniable thought: this story is far from over, and every choice has consequences that extend beyond the screen. The tension from earlier episodes wasn't a one-off. Every glance, every hesitation, every small disagreement from the last few days has piled up into something heavier than anyone expected. On camera, it might look like minor spats, but off-screen, insiders say the emotional fallout has been growing exponentially. Friendships are strained, alliances are fragile, and even casual interactions carry the weight of yesterday's grudges. You could feel it in the episode when someone finally snapped at the dinner table. And the silence that followed wasn't just awkward, it was loaded. Like everyone knew the eruption was coming, but nobody wanted to be the spark. Some of the cast who appeared confident and in control are now showing cracks. One person, previously the voice of reason, struggled to mediate without taking sides, and the result was a complete reversal of roles. Suddenly, the family or group dynamics aren't what they seemed. Meanwhile, someone who seemed weaker or more passive is emerging as unexpectedly grounded. Their calm in the chaos has made others question their own choices, creating unspoken tension that lingers in every frame. This episode proves that appearances can be deceiving and power shifts when least expected. The ripple effect from past choices is evident in nearly every scene. A misunderstanding that seemed small now drives suspicion and resentment. Allegedly, attempts at reconciliation are being met with defensiveness or withdrawal. One cast member tried to explain their perspective in a private conversation, only to be shut down abruptly. The camera caught the moment, and the fans online immediately speculated, was this avoidance, pride, or emotional exhaustion? And that's exactly why viewers can't look away. They're watching the slow, inevitable collision of personalities and priorities. It's fascinating to observe how quickly emotional fatigue spreads. One minor slight, one passive-aggressive comment, and suddenly the whole environment shifts. People who were allies yesterday now hesitate to speak. Someone who normally dominates the conversation is quiet, calculating every word. Meanwhile, the person previously ignored is taking control in subtle ways, nudging the conversation, steering decisions, and quietly influencing outcomes. It's a reminder that control isn't always loud, it can be strategic and silent, just as dangerous. Wait until you see who actually starts making moves in this episode. You won't see it coming. The cumulative consequences are particularly clear when private stress meets public expectation. One cast member's frustration with another's choices boiled over while filming a supposedly neutral activity. On camera, it seemed like a small argument, but insiders confirmed the tension had been brewing for days. Every choice, every slight, every ignored concern now compounds into emotional pressure that shows no signs of easing. It's almost like watching a slow burning fuse, and the fans online are analyzing each moment as if it's a ticking clock counting down to the inevitable clash. Even moments meant for bonding or celebration now carry subtle layers of tension. A dinner that should have felt lighthearted instead exposed who is holding grudges and who is strategically avoiding confrontation. Those tiny shifts, raised eyebrows, short replies, avoidance of eye contact, become magnified when examined frame by frame. Allegedly, some cast members are deliberately steering conversations away from certain topics, knowing that any misstep could create a public spectacle or a social media storm. Contrast drives the tension further. Someone who has been consistently self-focused now appears almost helpless in the face of consequences, while another person who previously seemed reactive is surprisingly composed. These reversals don't just make the narrative more unpredictable, they force viewers to reassess loyalties, strengths, and who will ultimately maintain influence over the group dynamic. The stakes are escalating, and what happens next could completely shift the hierarchy in the group. Behind the camera, producers reportedly noticed the shift in emotional control immediately. Scenes that were meant to be lighthearted became charged with underlying tension. One moment intended as humor instead highlighted a fracture. A cast member's joke was interpreted as criticism, leading to visible defensiveness. The small misunderstandings that viewers might take for granted are the cracks forming in relationships that were already fragile. The camera captures these micro moments, and it's exactly this subtlety that keeps fans engaged. They are piecing together the emotional puzzle in real time. Miscommunication is a recurring theme, and it's driving some of the most dramatic reversals. Someone who believed they had clarity on a situation realized they were misreading intentions entirely, leading to overreactions that will carry consequences for future interactions. Conversely, another person who was previously hesitant to act stepped into the space left by misunderstanding, subtly asserting control. It's almost Shakespearean, watching confidence crumble in one corner while another quietly rises from the chaos. The episode also highlights the psychological weight of repeated small slights. One cast member, known for avoiding confrontation, is now showing signs of emotional fatigue that everyone else seems to notice, but can't directly address. Allegedly, the stress is manifesting in withdrawal and passive behavior, which paradoxically strengthens their influence. The others are second guessing, overcompensating, and in effect, feeding into the imbalance. It's a classic case of tension reinforcing itself, and the audience can see the pattern forming even before the cast does. You will not believe who unexpectedly takes charge by the end of this episode. It's a total reversal. Meanwhile, social media fans are fueling the drama in real time. Verified posts, dissecting clips, analyzing phrasing, and predicting outcomes are shaping perceptions as much as the events themselves. One fan tweeted, "The way they just walked away, that's peak power move." Another pointed out the irony of someone preaching patience while triggering the biggest meltdown yet. These reactions aren't just commentary, they're part of the ecosystem, influencing both public perception and, allegedly, the cast behavior in later episodes. Consequences aren't limited to interpersonal tension. Decisions made earlier in the season are now showing real emotional and strategic cost. A choice that seemed inconsequential, refusing to apologize, avoiding an uncomfortable conversation, or asserting independence, has now accumulated into a tangible rift. The ripple effect is everywhere, from subtle glances to outright avoidance. Everyone is watching each other carefully, and the energy on camera is charged with anticipation and unspoken threat. Twists make the episode even more gripping. Someone who seemed powerless in prior episodes now stands firm, refusing to bend under pressure and gaining respect quietly. Meanwhile, the person who appeared most confident suddenly loses control over a situation they thought they could manage. The contrast between perception and reality is sharp, making every scene feel unpredictable. Allegedly, these reversals are setting up even higher stakes drama in the next episode, ensuring viewers are left hungry for more. Keep watching. Next episode could completely upend alliances you thought were stable. Small victories and failures accumulate quickly in this cycle. One cast member's minor success is celebrated subtly but strategically, causing others to react in unexpected ways. Another moment of overconfidence results in missteps that immediately shift group dynamics. Every action, no matter how small, is now part of a larger chain of cause and effect that the audience can track, making the viewing experience feel almost interactive. Private confrontations also escalate the consequences. What seems like a quiet conversation becomes a pivot point when recorded and aired. Words that could have been dismissed in normal circumstances are amplified by the presence of cameras and the knowledge that millions are watching. Allegedly, some of these confrontations are leading cast members to rethink alliances, priorities, and personal strategies. The episode ends with multiple threads unresolved, each with potential for explosive payoffs later. The reversals extend to emotional grounding as well. Someone previously considered reckless or impulsive now demonstrates emotional control, strategic thinking, and the ability to influence others without raising their voice. Conversely, someone who once seemed the voice of reason shows impatience and loses their footing in key decisions. This shift underscores a central theme in high-tension environments. Perceived strength and actual influence rarely match up, and the audience witnesses the moment these illusions collapse. By the time the episode closes, the cumulative fallout is unmistakable. Relationships are strained, trust is tentative, and missed opportunities are apparent to everyone, both on screen and among viewers online. Every choice, every avoidance, and every calculated move has compounded, creating a web of tension that is thrilling to follow but exhausting for the cast. Allegedly, the consequences will carry forward, shaping not just the next episode, but the trajectory of the entire season. Next episode promises to redraw the power map entirely, and you will not want to miss who rises and who falls. Even the smallest details, hesitations, micro-expressions, subtle shifts in tone, take on outsized importance. Fans are noticing, tweeting screenshots, and speculating on long-term impact. The cast's awareness of this scrutiny adds another layer. Emotional reactions are now both genuine and performative, a delicate balance that could tip in any moment. By the end, the viewer is left with the unmistakable sense that nothing is resolved, and every emotional thread will pay off in future episodes. Every setup from earlier acts comes full circle in this section. Many cliffhangers from Act 1 and Act 2 are echoed. Who will step up? Who will retreat? And who will finally confront the consequences of previous choices? Allegedly, the outcomes of today's events are already being felt in the cast's personal dynamics, meaning next week's episode could be explosive. The tension isn't just about a single argument, it's about cumulative fallout, reversals in control, and long-term consequences that the audience can feel even before the cameras roll again. The episode demonstrates a clear psychological pattern. The longer avoidance persists, the heavier the emotional consequences become. Choices made under stress now have long-lasting impact. Every subtle maneuver, every avoided confrontation, and every assertion of independence carries weight, leaving viewers both entertained and emotionally invested. Allegedly, the trajectory of relationships this season hinges on who adapts to the mounting pressure and who continues resisting accountability. By the final scene, the stage is set. Emotional fractures, miscommunications, and unexpected reversals have left the cast in a precarious position. The audience is left both satisfied with the drama that unfolded and anxious about what comes next. Allegedly, the ripple effects of this episode will dominate conversations online and influence the next series of confrontations. Every choice now matters more than ever. The next episode will change everything. Alliances, control, and emotional stakes are about to flip, and no one will be prepared for the fallout. By the time the episode wrapped, the emotional stakes were impossible to ignore. The fallout from miscommunications, defensiveness, and small but cumulative slights left the cast emotionally raw. Patterns of avoidance collided with bursts of assertiveness, creating a roller coaster that kept viewers glued. One person's patience had run out, another's control was crumbling, and everyone else was adjusting, recalculating, and reconsidering their next move. It's one thing to watch a confrontation, it's another to see the ripple effects through relationships, choices, and public perception all at once. The lessons here are subtle but significant. Emotional avoidance may feel safe in the moment, but the long-term consequences are undeniable. When you refuse to confront tension or communicate clearly, small fractures grow into chasms. Allegedly, viewers saw it play out in quiet glances, withheld words, and reactions that spoke louder than dialogue. Conversely, moments of clarity or self-awareness, even brief, showed immediate effects, calming others, diffusing minor conflicts, or subtly asserting influence. The contrast between avoidance and engagement became the through line of the entire episode, illustrating how personal choices drive relational outcomes in ways that are rarely obvious until the consequences arrive. Next episode promises the payoff of all these simmering tensions, and you won't believe how far the fallout spreads. One of the most striking elements this episode revealed is the psychology of escalation. When minor slights accumulate, even calm personalities can fracture under pressure. Someone who has previously appeared composed or indifferent is showing cracks, struggling with trust and emotional patience. Meanwhile, another cast member, initially reactive, is becoming more strategic in their interactions. Observing this shift highlights a central truth: emotional resilience isn't always loud or dramatic, but it changes the game entirely when the stakes are high. Fans online notice these subtleties immediately, dissecting screenshots and predicting long-term outcomes, proving the power of incremental behavior over explosive moments. The episode also forced reflection on loyalty and betrayal, and how they are interpreted differently depending on context. Allegedly, one action that seemed innocuous sparked deep frustration and a sense of being sidelined. Another gesture, meant as reconciliation, was interpreted as manipulation. This dynamic created tension that wasn't just interpersonal, it was almost psychological, illustrating how perception often outweighs intent. The audience could see the layering of motives, assumptions, and emotional baggage, which made every interaction feel charged with consequence. You won't want to miss how the next episode confronts these loyalty conflicts head-on. Behavior patterns were unmistakable. One person habitually deflected accountability, creating frustration that others could no longer ignore. Another person, previously passive, finally established boundaries in ways that subtly shifted control. The interplay between these contrasting approaches drove suspense and suspenseful moments on camera. Allegedly, the audience responded strongly online, debating whether the assertive moves were justified or reactive, which adds another layer. The show isn't just about what happens in the house, but how it resonates in real time with fans who feel invested in the unfolding drama. Emotional growth and decline were on full display. Some cast members displayed remarkable self-awareness, acknowledging mistakes and taking small steps toward repairing strained relationships. Others resisted, doubling down on avoidance and defensiveness. The tension between these approaches provided an ongoing emotional rhythm, escalation followed by a fleeting pause, then the next eruption. Observing these cycles offers insight into why the dynamics are so compelling. Viewers aren't watching superficial arguments. They're watching the slow, calculated movement of emotional power, one choice at a time. The next episode could finally push one member past the breaking point, and the consequences will ripple across every relationship. Fans' reactions amplified the emotional stakes. Social media posts ranged from supportive to critical, and the way the cast responded, or didn't respond, added another layer of tension. Allegedly, seeing viewers debate every reaction fueled anxiety and strategy, subtly influencing future interactions. One viral clip showed a particularly tense moment that sparked thousands of comments speculating about motives, alliances, and emotional resilience. The public scrutiny magnified the stakes, creating an almost self-perpetuating cycle. Each reaction influenced behavior, which in turn influenced the narrative for the next episode. Rhetorical questions keep viewers engaged. Would you tolerate repeated slights without confrontation? Or would you snap? If someone close to you repeatedly avoided accountability, would patience still be a virtue or a liability? These questions invite reflection while reinforcing the drama, making the audience complicit in the tension. Allegedly, the next episode will test the limits of both patience and strategy, forcing viewers to reconsider who they support and why. The episode also explored emotional reversals in unexpected ways. Someone who had seemed powerless gained subtle control, influencing the environment quietly but effectively. Another, previously dominant, struggled to maintain composure, revealing vulnerability that changed group dynamics. These reversals are critical. They demonstrate that no position is permanent, and the audience's perception of stability is constantly challenged. Allegedly, the next episode is set to magnify these reversals, creating high-stakes drama that fans will analyze for weeks. Prepare for emotional bombshells, loyalties will be tested, and power dynamics will shift in shocking ways. One of the most compelling takeaways is how emotional and relational patterns intersect with public perception. Cast members' choices aren't just personal, they are amplified through the lens of the camera and the scrutiny of millions. Each minor success or failure carries disproportionate weight, shaping relationships and reputations simultaneously. The episode captured these moments with precision, allowing viewers to witness both the intent and impact of actions, and the social media reactions only intensified the tension. Allegedly, the next installment will challenge both the cast's control and the audience's expectations. The episode also left multiple threads unresolved. Questions about loyalty, accountability, and emotional boundaries remain open, keeping viewers invested in the consequences that will unfold next. Small confrontations hinted at bigger payoffs, and the audience is left guessing how previous choices will influence decisions in future episodes. Allegedly, the next episode will confront these tensions directly, creating an emotional and strategic climax that is impossible to predict. In reflecting on character growth, it's clear that emotional intelligence is unevenly distributed. Some individuals demonstrate remarkable insight and adaptability, while others cling to patterns that create conflict. Allegedly, these disparities drive suspense, because viewers understand that the next episode's outcomes will hinge on who adapts, who resists, and how each choice amplifies consequences. The interplay between growth and resistance ensures that tension remains high, creating a compelling narrative that rewards attention to subtle behavior. Next time, someone finally snaps, and nothing will ever be the same. Prepare for alliances to crumble and relationships to fracture. Ultimately, the episode highlights a central truth. Actions have consequences, whether immediate or delayed. Emotional avoidance, deflection, and unchecked pride may seem manageable in the short term, but the cumulative fallout is unavoidable. Meanwhile, small acts of self awareness, communication, or boundary setting can have outsized effects, shifting power dynamics in ways that are dramatic but believable. For the audience, this creates a layered, emotionally charged experience that is addictive to watch. The emotional payoff is clear. Viewers are left with a mix of shock, curiosity, and anticipation. Who will rise to the occasion? Who will falter under pressure? Which alliances will hold and which will collapse? Allegedly, the answers lie in the next episode, where simmering tension finally meets confrontation, creating dramatic, unmissable payoffs. You won't believe how far the next episode goes. Emotional boundaries will break, secrets will surface, and one cast member's move will redefine everything. This is the type of storytelling that keeps audiences returning, dissecting moments, and debating behavior. The combination of emotional stakes, public scrutiny, and strategic maneuvering creates a narrative that feels alive, unpredictable, and deeply human. Allegedly, the next installment will push all characters to their limits, testing emotional resilience, relationships, and public perception in ways that will leave viewers talking long after the episode ends. The final takeaway is simple but powerful. Choices matter, patterns repeat, and emotional intelligence, or the lack of it, can define outcomes. The audience is now primed, invested, and impatient for the next turn of events. Allegedly, one wrong move or unexpected assertive act in the next episode could completely alter relationships, control, and viewer expectations, making it essential to stay tuned. Next time, the emotional fallout explodes and nothing will ever be the same. Are you ready for the chaos?